Köllnische Heide. So my original plan, I could cycle along the Berlin Wall. And a few days later I looked it up and it turns out the entire thing, the circumference, is about 87 miles, which is a little bit too long for me to cycle in one day. So I've decided to do just kind of the middle bit. So I'm starting here at Köllnische Heide on the Ringbahn, and I will be going all the way up through the city centre, finishing off at Wollankstraße. So that's my plan, to cycle there through the city centre along the path of the Berlin Wall. I've hired a bike for the day. So I'm starting my cycle here in the suburb of Baumschulenweg. This is the Britzer Verbindungs Canal, and west of here, in that direction, the wall followed on this canal. I think there was a physical wall on the other bank there. So basically the canal marks the border. Here it suddenly comes off the canal, goes onto land. There's not all that much to actually see, the trace of the wall are long gone, but there is still a noticeable gap between the older buildings, and for most of the length there are paths like these that you can cycle along, literally cycling along the path of the wall. Here we have a section of what I can only assume is new built road, because according to my map the wall used to come right along here. They seem to be building something here. I can only assume it's a new bit of motorway. And just ahead of me is the Ringbahn proper. Heading west there you have Sonnenallee, and heading east you have Treptower Park. Here the Ringbahn was cut in two, with Sonnenallee becoming the furthest east terminus of the West Berlin Ringbahn, and Treptower Park becoming the westernmost point on the East Berlin Ringbahn. The path goes along a couple of small streets like this. I'm guessing all of these buildings were built since, although some of them look like they could be from the Eastern Bloc era, so not quite sure what's going on there. Maybe it was just very narrow at this point. These buildings on the right look newer, certainly. Indeed, looking at the map, it looks as though these buildings here were here before, and that when the wall was here they were simply kind of right backed up against the wall. These buildings on the right have been built since. Here for the first time I'm starting to see cobbled marker. Clearly it's not along the whole length, but we're clearly getting towards the centre because they've started marking out the exact position with the cobbles. The cobbles are a little bit misleading, I should point out, because the wall itself was quite wide and it had a fortified area on each side of varying width. So I think this entire green space was part of that fortified area as opposed to this exact line. Even so, it's a nice thing to put it here. Now for a bit we come off the suburban streets and start following the Landwehr Canal. Here where the Landwehr Canal meets the River Spree, the Berlin Wall took a 90-degree turn left, following the River Spree. So having deviated slightly, I've crossed the River Spree and rejoined the path of the Berlin Wall, and here for the first time I've seen an actual piece of it that's been left here. just along here is the Eastside Gallery, one of the main Berlin Wall museums, which I haven't actually been to yet, so I might stop off and visit it since I'm here anyway. So I was a little bit confused. Oh, Trabants. So I was a little bit confused at first because on Google Maps I saw the Eastside Gallery and the Wall Museum. I thought they were two different things. But the Eastside Gallery is actually the physical piece of wall that's here, as opposed to an exhibition attached to it. And there is also the Wall Museum, which is just over there. So I'm going to go visit the Wall Museum. So this is the Oberbahn Bridge, which we're looking at here from the balcony. It was apparently initially sealed off completely, then opened in 1972 as an official crossing point. I think the U-Bahn line on top was severed and was not reconnected until after the Berlin Wall came down. Here on the balcony, I'm in the museum, by the way. There's also some information about, because the border itself was on that side of the river, not on this side, so the river belongs to East Berlin, but because that side wasn't secured, there are a number of incidents where people basically drowned and the West Berlin authorities were not allowed to help them, which is quite a tragic tale. But now the bridge is reopened again, and you can see there the U-Bahn trains crossing it. The Eastside Gallery just keeps on going. There's a huge chunk here. It's just loads and loads of wall with all of these really creative and colourful bits of art on it. I'm so disappointed I didn't come here last time. This is brilliant. I'm so very glad that I did come here this time. And funnily enough, if you follow the Eastside Gallery all the way to the end, you get to the Hauptbahnhof, which I've never actually seen from the outside before. I've only ever been inside in the train shed. There seems to be some sort of rainbow display at the front with some very long looking ribbons. And we get to this part of the wall that's been turned essentially into a linear park. No markings or signage anywhere near this section, so I'm now relying entirely on my map. And as if by magic, we've arrived at Checkpoint Charlie. We've now definitely crossed from suburban Berlin into central Touristville Berlin. And soon after we reach another intact bit of wall there, outside the Topography of Terror Museum. Seeing a lot of police all of a sudden. This is Potsdamer Platz, by the way. Just a quick note, by the way, I've seen loads of these kind of elevated blue and pink pipes throughout the city, and I have absolutely no idea what they are. The pipes are linked to construction sites across the city, as the city of Berlin was built on what was once swampland. Construction sites therefore need water to be pumped out of the ground, which is then directed to the River Spree via these pipes. There's more of them. It's Extinction Rebellion. It looks like there's a chunk of wall in the middle of the road there, but my chances of successfully getting across seem slim. So this, according to this information plaque here, is the Korean Pavilion of Reunification. So here in the centre of Berlin, some old bits of the Berlin Wall, they've basically created a monument to the eventual hope of reuniting Korea, which, like Berlin, was divided, like Germany, was divided at the end of the Second World War, but they did not have such a happy ending. This, by the way, is also the site of another abandoned railway station, Potsdamer Platz. You can see this kind of linear park is here, not coincidentally. That was the straight line kind of track approach. There's now this mound of, you know, kind of embankment, which some of the protesters are climbing. I'm going to go up there, get a better view of everything. I've locked up my bike on the other side there, but in a bit I will resume my journey along the wall. Now here's where it gets a little bit confusing, because here at Potsdamer Platz the wall and the death strip was so wide they've actually commissioned this second almost parallel little marker on the street. So there's actually two side by side through here. So if you're cycling along one, be careful not to miss this. Of course, this only occurred to me because I'd seen this bit before. In fact, it was along here that I suddenly had the idea, ooh, I could try and follow this entire trail. And here I am, a week later, doing just that. There's also the German Spy Museum over there. There are so many bloody museums. Physically can't do them all. Maybe save it for next time. There's also a bit here, including a scaled down replica watchtower here in the Berlin Mall. Berlin Wall. But this, I don't think, is actually where the wall was. I think this is a couple of 100 meters off, not on the trail itself. So the last time I saw the replica, I didn't spot the little sign saying that the original, upon which it's based, is just round the corner. It's apparently the last watchtower that's been left in situ. It's just here on this side street. You can climb up inside. Here, the path of the Berlin Wall comes right past the Holocaust Memorial. And finally, we arrive at Brandenburg Tor, the Brandenburg Gate, the very heart and symbol of divided Berlin, because the wall literally passed through here. The Brandenburg Gate was between the two frontiers in the so-called death strip, and so was inaccessible for many decades, just beyond the wall for either side. Now, of course, it is totally open to go and see. Then just down the road, of course, is the Reichstag, the German Parliament building, which was just on the western side of the wall, but it was not actually used as the West German Parliament because the West German capital was located in Bonn. After the Reichstag, the wall once again picks up the path of the River Spree. You'll notice that all the buildings around me look very modern. That's because this was where the wall was. This is all now the offices of the German government. And just over the Spree there is the Hauptbahnhof, which opened in 2006 and is now very much a symbol of united and modernised Berlin. The wall then seems to go straight through an old graveyard. In fact, the church to which this graveyard belonged was demolished to make space for the wall. And there is a bit of the wall, I think this is a bit of the wall still intact. It doesn't look like the usual chunks of the Berlin Wall, but I'm not sure. Might just be a fence. I'm definitely back in the suburbs now, although we go slightly back in towards the city centre again in a bit. Out here there are no markings, but those signposts where you have to turn a corner are there, so there's at least that. So I've reached Nordbahnhof, yet another former Berlin station, which uncoincidentally closed at about the same time that Berlin was divided. In fact, it was 1952, if I'm not too badly mistaken. There's a little bit of the station still intact over there. I've already taken a look at that. What I haven't seen yet, just around the corner, is this. Another little bit of the Berlin Wall that's been left intact, plus this kind of art piece that accompanies it. Down in the S-Bahn station, by the way, there is a very interesting exhibit all about the ghost stations of the Berlin U-Bahn and S-Bahn networks. But I've already done a video all about that, so I'm not going to bother with that today. It actually looks as though Nordbahnhof is getting a substantial expansion, or maybe they're just building a new block next door. So that was Nordbahnhof. good place to stop off and learn a bit more about the wall. Although I've learnt plenty already today, it's still a very good memorial site, and with quite a few aspects of the wall, not just the wall itself, but some of the security systems also well preserved, and lots of information about them. I may be sorely mistaken here, but this in front of me looks very much like an abandoned railway viaduct, and a very, well, embankment, not viaduct. And it looks like a very wide one as well. It's not the approach to Nordbahnhof. Not sure what it is. Let's go take a look. It is in fact the approach to an old railway station, which confusingly also held the name Nordbahnhof. It's thus usually known as Old Nordbahnhof. The other Nordbahnhof used to be called Stettiner Bahnhof. The approach today is a park known as the Mauerpark. Anyway, Wollankstraße is not far away now. It's just straight up here, then past a few railway junctions, and then we're almost there. So I've made it to the northern half of the Ringbahn. That, I believe, over there is Gesenbrunnen station. So here as well, the Ringbahn was simply sliced in half by the wall when it came along, although it's not obvious from here where that dividing line was. It's all been since reconnected. This footbridge, I'm guessing, has been put there since, but it's the closest you can get to the original course. And then here there's a delta junction, so there's a line that goes up in that direction, which is used by various S-Bahn lines, and up from here, up until Wollankstraße and beyond, the wall used to run along that railway line. I'm going as far as Wollankstraße, then I'm calling it a day, heading back. I must say, that is quite a pedestrian bridge. I mean, otherwise you'd just have a massive, impenetrable, splodge of railway land here. Makes it all a bit more accessible on foot or by bike, which is good. But you rarely see such substantial pieces of infrastructure for just cyclists or pedestrians. So this is my final stop before Wollankstraße, here Bornholmer Straße, one station along the line on the S-Bahn. At this point the railway line itself formed part of the border zone, and so Bornholmer Straße was closed. Here you had both East and West Berlin S-Bahn trains passing without stopping. Here you also have a little square called the 9th of November 1989 square, to commemorate obviously the day the Berlin Wall fell, and here's a little bit of the inner wall that they have preserved. I've come to my last stop, Wollankstraße. Now, an oddity here meant the wall officially was on this side of the tracks, but the station was made accessible only to West Berlin and thus functioned as a West Berlin station, even though it was in fact within East Berlin. The wall itself was just on the other side. Despite functioning as part of West Berlin and being part of the West Berlin S-Bahn, the station was staffed by East Berlin railway staff. And that brings me to an end of this particular cycle. having cycled all the way from some random point on the wall in the south of the city to this random point in the north of the city, because I couldn't be asked to do the entire 87-mile circuit. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.